Okay, everybody. So we are missing Kris. We are just going to get started without Kris. And then when he arrives, we will kind of backtrack and get all of that. So thank you for bearing with us. My name is Kristen Wile. Hello. I see several familiar faces. Thank you all so much for being here today. I am a food writer, so my side of this is more consuming food, but I'm the editor of Unpretentious Palate, a publication covering restaurants here in Charlotte, as well as local farms and agriculture, food policy, and sustainability is something that has become more and more discussed in restaurants. I think a lot of chefs in Charlotte are prioritizing sourcing locally, and they are realizing that it's going to be harder and harder to source quality food as we run out of ways to feed people. I think one of the things that Kris had mentioned in our earlier call was that we're running out of topsoil. And so food waste is super, super important, bringing nutrients back into the planet, but also making sure that there's enough food to feed everybody, and as well as from a business side. So I'm going to introduce our panelists here today. We have Felicia Cordray, who is the co-founder and owner of Core K9. She's a three-time entrepreneur champion of sustainability who created a healthy dog food business as a solution to reducing food waste for her busy catering company. She's from Lexington, Kentucky, and she's been in Charlotte since 2005, so basically a native at this point, right? Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And she runs catering by Cordray along with her husband and business partner, Manuel. Her true passion is improving canine wellness, and through Core K9, she transforms surplus ingredients from their catering operations into nutritious, gently cooked meals for dogs. It's a win win business model, reducing food waste while supporting pet health. And this is on this side, we will introduce Kris when he gets here, I guess. But Suzanne Alonso, she is the program director of Feeding Charlotte. She came to Feeding Charlotte as a sincere community advocate. She's worked in a number of nonprofit animal sheltering organizations over the past 2 decades. So a lot of dog lovers up here, a lot of animal lovers up here. She's instrumental in developing Adopters Welcome at the Humane Society of the United States. And she has worked with pet food pantries in Reading and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and right here in Charlotte. And she knows that offering accessible resources sets a community up for success. So, and Suzanne, can you tell us a little bit about what your role at Feeding Charlotte is as well? We're gonna.
Of course, we have essentially three components for my organization. We have the folks that give the food, we call them food donors. We have the folks that are getting the food. They're organizations rather than individuals. Those organizations are sharing the food we share with them with individuals. We call those guys the recipient partners. And then we've got a key link in the middle, our volunteers. I wrangle all three of those so that we know what's coming in, keep trying to get more coming in, know where it's going, and try and meet the needs so that those nonprofits can focus a little bit better on what their core mission is. They don't have to struggle as much to make ends meet. They don't have to struggle as much to find food. They have more consistency. And then in that middle, that volunteer opportunity, before you leave today, I would like to hornswoggle you into volunteering for us. I'll explain more later.
I love that. And Felicia, I'd love to touch on your business as well because obviously you've found a really creative way to minimize food waste and turn that into a business positive. Has it always been that way, or did you add the dog food piece later on when you realized there was waste to utilize?
Yeah, so it started out with just a catering company. In 2015 is when we started catering. Of course, we've always focused on reducing as much waste as possible. So we did that for 9 years before we finally started the gently cooked dog food. It was kind of a no-brainer. It was, you create the food, you see the food that you have coming in, you want to make sure that your profitability, so you're not having a lot of waste that you're ordering. And then it just kind of got to where once we realized that there was ingredients that we could cross-utilize from our catering business into the gently cooked dog food, and we had dogs at home that we were feeding, we just kind of did it, and that's where we started.
I love that. So one of the things that I think we should talk about is what happens when our food waste when we just throw it out. And I'm going to kind of touch a little bit on what Kris was going to speak about. Because when you have something like a banana peel and you throw it in your trash, it goes to a landfill. You may think because a lot of landfills are outside that you're essentially composting, but because when organic matter is covered by non-organic matter the science isn't sciencing, right? Like the without access to oxygen, you're not breaking things down in a way that it would normally in the planet. It doesn't decompose in a natural way. And so when you're taking that food waste and you're composting it, you're actually able to reuse and recycle those nutrients that the soil needs to keep nourishing and keep the planet functioning the way it needs to be. So that's one thing, right? Like from the planet's perspective, we really need to be putting that organic matter back into the ground in order to continue taking those nutrients out of the planet. We're without composting, we're taking, we're not replenishing. But I also wanted to kind of touch on this a little bit from a people perspective and a business perspective. Suzanne, from a people perspective, obviously the planet can grow so much food, and there is a disparity on how much we all eat. What is the importance for food rescue? We think of food waste, but that's not necessarily just what the scraps from what we're not eating. It's also the food that we over order or we over purchase and, may not eat and it expires in our pantry. So from a people perspective, why does this matter?
It matters a ton because these are our neighbors that we're talking about. Um, there are so many of you in this room. Some of you may have experienced conditional poverty. You're in college, you're staring at an empty cabinet. Oh man, what do I do now? You figure it out. You may not be stuck there forever. Some of you may be struggling to make ends meet. Some of you may have had that in the past and gotten to a better position in life. Some of you, I hate to say it may be down the road, excuse me, in your future. Anyone can fall into that position where they need food. For us as neighbors, it's sort of a no-brainer. The work that I do it involves one of the dumbest problems we've got going on. We overproduce food. The food that my organization handles is still top quality food. I want to kind of explain it a little bit more so you can picture it in your head. If you walk into, I don't know, CMC Maine, one of our hospitals here in town, you walk into the atrium and you're there after work. You're visiting Aunt Tilly, who just had surgery. Man, it was a hard day. You pop into their cafeteria because you're about to get hangry. You just grab something to eat. You might be the last person to walk into that cafeteria at that point in that day, but you have all those choices in front of you. If it's a rainy day, if it's going into a holiday weekend, you may not have had as many visitors come because they're pulled other places, but they're still counting on, hey, this is what we typically get. So they have now produced food for all those people. They need to, according to, our etiquette, what we're used to. You walk into a restaurant, you don't want your only choice to be peanut butter and jelly. You want, give me some with chicken, give me some with ravioli. Okay, take that moment in time. There's food that's left over. It's never been touched on a buffet. It's been kept according to guidelines. That gets socked into the fridge. If it's coming to us, and we're the minority, it gets chucked out in the trash. It doesn't even get into the compost pile of things for most of the organizations and companies out there producing food. It matters because if you think about how big is that hospital? Like, how many minutes would it take you to visit every single buddy in that room and just say, hey, wow, you're there forever. Everybody there is eating, the doctors, the staff, the people who are in for surgery, the people visiting those people for surgery, people that are coming back in and out for just the maintenance, that type of stuff. Okay, take all of that food for them and look at a nonprofit partner. They may be a nonprofit. When I look at our partners, that serves after school programs, kids for summer programs, seniors that just aren't able to get around anymore. They may be working with our unhoused neighbors. So we've got a heavy population of homeless here in Charlotte, and they still need to eat too. When we look at all those things, it's the right thing to do. It's a no-brainer to make that happen. From a people perspective, what's also interesting is the kitchens that we deal with. Sometimes those kitchens have given us the feedback that it literally leads to staff retention. I know we've got one that it was the make or break for their summer camp employees last year. They had a cycle where people were constantly leaving because so much food was being thrown out. That's why the organization reached out to us. Now they can retain their staff. They can function better. For them, it's a profit issue and just a logistics matter. If I look at who's getting food as the driver shuttle busing it, it's a really big community give back. If you want to be part of the solution, it's setting the bar low and giving you a task to do that you don't have to marry it, but it's there. So when it's a people thing, it's not just, oh, it's the right thing to do. It's staff retention. It's keeping things so that more programs can be functional. It's making sure that you have an easy way to give back, that you've got your action item and you don't have to spend your whole life doing it. It's one thing, check box, done. Long answer, thanks.
I kind of like to piggyback off of that, what you said, when you speak from like a restaurant or a catering perspective. In our case, for catering by Cordray, what we can do is, you do when you place your orders, you want to stay concerned with how much you're ordering so that you don't over order. And once you over order, a lot of times that can turn into potential waste. So from the catering standpoint, you are able, when I say cross utilize, what we do typically do is we have all of our recipes are all utilized within several different ingredients, different items, different menu items. And then once we drop off at one location, we can, if there is waste and we don't utilize all of those ingredients, or we can typically send it to another location. We can reutilize it. And then what we do have left over, instead of letting that go to waste, then that's where the dog food company comes into play. Most of our salads, for example, we have salads, we use spinach in our salads. Well, our dog food also includes spinach. So that's a way to keep that from going to waste. And then you also had mentioned like the employee retention. With the catering company, of course, you have what we call a suitcase season. That suitcase season within the catering industry is the summertime when families are going on vacation, so they're leaving. They're not utilizing catering as much as they did when they're at home and everything's the norm. Typically, suitcase season. So during those times, we found that in the past, we had to try to be innovative with ways that we could keep our staff, keep them working without being, taking the chance on losing them. And so again, that was another way that we were able to keep the staff retention with the catering, with the dog food company, just to provide those additional resources for them, being able to utilize them in more than just one space, more than just the catering, also the dog food.
Can you talk us through a little bit from a business perspective, like the financials of what is the benefit to the business of cross-utilizing like that? And because food costs are higher than ever. So, in terms of sustainability, it's important, but also just trying to survive as a business. Like, how much easier is it financially on you when you're able to find ways to cross-utilize, and what does that look like on the books?
Well, of course, with the catering, with any business, you have a razor thin margin that you would like for waste. So when you're ordering, you want to, again, make sure that you're not over ordering, because, again, if you do have that food that's going to go to waste, that's just like money down the drain. So I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, just financially, how big is the impact when you figure out ways to reuse and reduce food waste?
Yeah, it's a huge impact, because if you're ordering so much food and you're not utilizing, of course, that hurts your bottom line. Once you,
You're good.
my mind is all over the place.
A lot goes on in the brain of a business owner. Like I.
So yes, again, your margins are razor thin, so you don't want to over order, because over ordering is going to cause you to, create a lot of the waste and um,
Why was it dog food specifically that made sense based on, like, was it something you looked at your ingredients and you were like, okay, this makes sense? Or was it your lifestyle and having pets? Was it more of a business choice or passion project or both? Like, how did that all come together?
It started out as a passion. So 11 years, well, not 11 years ago, but we had a Connie Corso. Her name was Duchess. Duchess was with us for 11 years. She developed cancer. By the time we found found her diagnosis and realized that she had cancer, it was too late. It had spread all through her body at this time. We had been feeding her kibble for majority of her life, and once she passed, within like the last year of her life, we had decided to start feeding her like the chicken and the rice, because she was off and on getting sick. We realized that once we were feeding her the chicken and the rice, it made her smell better. It just had all positive effects. Her fur was shinier. She used the restroom less. It just overall had an overall positive effect. once we lost Duchess, we still had the catering company. Um, we later got two more dogs, and once we got those animals, we realized that we needed to revisit what was going on with the food, what was happening with her could possibly happen with the two that we purchased or the two that we got. Um, and in keeping them healthy, it became very important to us to make sure that their diet prevented what had happened with Duchess. It was prevented with her, and so we had the resources through the catering company. And with the catering company, we had the vendors, we had everything that we needed there, and we were already cross utilizing the ingredients that we had. So it just was kind of a no brainer just to go ahead and recreate some of that food and making the dog food.
That's a really creative way of doing it. I also had a similar situation, had a sick pet. We started feeding homemade food, and you really do notice the difference. And it's just, yeah, across the board. When you're eating at home, it's so easy to just kind of save things, put them aside. I'd love to hear from both of you. I don't know if Suzanne, you want to start with this one, but as a consumer, right? Like, I don't know if anybody in here like owns a massive food scale operation, but for me, sometimes when I have leftover food or items, like, what is the best way as a single person or as a household to make a difference and reduce food waste?
Menu plan. If you there's a game I also play with myself, which is the don't bother to go to the store. Um, if you've seen or you've heard of the TV shows where somebody has to pull something together with whatever's put in front of them, it's a challenge. And if you look at it as a challenge, you're probably not going to do it. If you talk with your household and figure out, hey there, talk with your household and figure out what do we have, what do we like, what do we need? Are we getting a little too round in the middle? Maybe we shave off certain ingredients. Getting a group plan will help you make that menu plan and having a knowledge of what's in your fridge before you buy more makes such a big difference. What do you want to take it from there? Hi. Okay, so
I think really just when we all typically go shopping, and once we're in those stores, it's easy to walk up and down the aisles and just over purchase. And I think that if you go in intentionally with a plan, plan ahead. I know when I was younger, my mom used to write a list on the refrigerator for me, planning every day out. And once you do that, it kind of prevents you from over purchasing, and those over purchases creating that waste.
may I chime in with one more thought? Please raise your hand if you have paid for avocado toast. Have you done it? Okay, turn around and look at how many hands are up. Keep your hands up. All right, can I just clarify? Put your hands down. I have hand up. I purchased it. $10 piece of toast, avocado. So what we also do at our house is we have fancy restaurant day. All right, my household contains 2 humans and a flock of animals. So what I end up doing as the first one up is I make the toast, I find the avocado, I smear it on. I take more time finding a fancy plate and cutting it diagonally and making a big production of drizzling the honey and let's put the fancy salt. It's regular salt. I put the fancy salt on there and then I might figure out if I've got one piece of fruit and I peel it. I give it restaurant quality. I may also serve it in a different area. I put it in the yard on a table. And the table is actually just a recycling can turned upside down with a tablecloth on top of it. But I make it all easy because it's that, oh, I can do this at home. That changes it because it would have been boring before. If you try and pitch that to kids, here, eat some avocado toast. If you pitch it to teenagers, I only want the $25 avocado toast because I'm 16 and she has it. Also, not a great sell. But if you can do that and generate that interest in your house, you can do anything. Think of what you could do with beans.
Sorry. There's a lot of answers to that straightforward question. And I'll actually add one more company in that we just started, and it was launched. We're actually at the market right now selling. We actually have a farm. So we are actually taking your food waste, turning it into soil, now growing food. So literal circular economy. So we're actually selling at Camp North End on Wednesday nights and Cotswold Market on Saturdays. So we're there right now. Super cool. So in terms of nutrients back to the soil or back to the world, I mean, you're taking and I don't, so and again, I apologize kind of as to where we are in the progression of all of this, but at the end of the day, if this food waste is landing in a landfill, it's not being put to use, right? It's creating greenhouse gases, methane, one of the worst greenhouse gases that we have, and it's expediting climate change. So like just easy, hey, like let's cut that off and then we can talk about landfill space. I don't know if we've gotten there yet, but this sense of we're running out of space where we're going to put things, and that is literally our waste. And so can we put it back to use and regenerate something new? Then we can kind of get into the actual like topsoil layer. So there are recent studies out there right now that say that we have about 50 harvests remaining, which means that our topsoil is continuing to be depleted, or our soil is continuing to be depleted to where we won't have the nutrients to create the food that we need. And so if we now can instead take that waste that is landing in a landfill, but put it to use, i.e. creating a newer layer of topsoil so we can grow quality food, there's a good thing in that. Then you can get into the actual nutrient density of food, right? And I believe that food is what creates healthy people, or healthy food is what creates healthy people. And so if you're growing food in nutrient deficient soil, then your food is nutrient deficient. And again, going into some research, and I'll just make up the number because I'm not exactly right, but it's pretty close to this, that if you ate a carrot 30 to 50 years ago, you have to now eat 10 carrots today to have the same level of nutrients. That is pretty disappointing and depressing. And so we are creating a top line soil that is actually it's actually considered a living soil. Nematodes, fungi, all the good things that are actually bringing in the things that we want, which then creates a healthier carrot or a healthier tomato and the like. Follow-up questions there? Sure. I would say there's a couple of answers there, and just to kind of step back into like that nutrient density, there are now tools that are coming out there, and there's a restaurateur up in the Northeast. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's worked with this, and now we can actually look at carrot A and carrot B, and we can actually tell this one has more nutrients in it. Like we're starting to get to that level, so soil is going to be ever more and more important. And this, thank you. There you go. It is Dan Barber. One Plate or Third Plate is the book that he most recently wrote, and he tried to create a sustainable restaurant where everything from his farm was going into the restaurant, and he realized this is terribly difficult. And so it has kind of sent him on this new mission of, furthering the environmental awareness of all of this. People come to us for all kinds of reasons. I would say that the number one is a climate change reality. We're now building the blocks on the micronutrients and teaching and educating people about that piece of thing, that piece of the process.
I would say that I'm mostly proud that we are able to, as he had stated, we create within our own companies, we create that circular economy. We start with the catering company. We have the food that we order. We make sure that we don't over order so that again we don't have much to waste. Everyone has waste. So I'm not saying that we're completely zero waste, but we can we're really proud of being able to reduce that waste from the beginning part of this whole process and then pass that into the gently cooked dog food. And then as it goes along with our team, has been able to sustain our team as well. Right, right. Yeah, sure. The first thing that I always example I give is a lot of us eat sweet potatoes. We use sweet potatoes in a lot of our recipes as well. But when you are preparing your sweet potato or your carrots, the first thing that we do is we cut the tips off because it's not pretty or we just don't want to use it or you're shaving the skin or the same with the squash and the zucchini. Um, we're able to take those products and not include them in our dishes for the catering for the human side of our business, but we're able to put that to the side and reuse it in an ingredient for the animals, for the pets. Same nutritional value, just as nutritious for the animals as it is for the humans. It's just something that, like you said, we as people don't see it as pretty, so we don't want to use it. So we're able to take that ingredient and use it in the dog food. They are. They are very nutritious. That dogs love them. We actually, a little example of one of the most recent things that I can think of we did. We cater for Truist, and this one order that they had placed, they wanted a potato bar. And so on the potato bar, we had, you've got a plan to be able to accommodate everyone. So we ordered, the potatoes that we needed, the white and the sweet potatoes. They came back. Most of it was used, but I think it was around 5 pounds that came back. And so when you think about those potatoes going out and coming back, they're going to just, get thrown out. Well, instead of having to throw those out, we're able to take that ingredient and make it into a treat. So the treats are the newest item that we've added to our dog food line. So like I said, we took the sweet potatoes, we reduced it, mix it down, and then we put it in a mold and we make a sweet potato treat. And so the sweet potato treat, we're able to utilize other ingredients with it that we already have within the kitchen, such as molasses, gluten-free flour, and we just kind of mix it all together, and that keeps us from having to throw out that 5 pounds of potatoes that came back from that event. And we're able to keep it, not waste it. Right. Well, again, that's what's so great. We've always practiced, just kind of when you create your recipes again to be able to cross utilize. So you're going to look at every order that you've got coming, and you want to get it as close as you can. Of course, nothing's perfect, so you can't make a perfect order. But you kind of go into it knowing that, okay, I've got this order. I'm shopping for the whole week. So I've got this order coming up. And if that doesn't sell, then we're able to hold on to it for a little while because, it'll last for a little while. And then we're able, like, the next day to utilize it within another customer's order. Or we donate it. We've donated to Crisis Assistance Ministry, places like that. We typically will go out to the homeless shelters if we have anything like the salads that are left over, sandwiches, and can donate it in that way.
Take both.
Um, I've been sitting here formulating this. I think I'm really proud of our growth and the fact that we're looking at, where does this put us? Because our growth has been a total plus and an absolute drawback. Let me filter that back a little bit. This is sort of a linear order. If you were in the other session that had Daniel Heaton, he was talking about a circular economy. That's here, but there are loops within this lineup. So we are circular. Stuff here may never come to an organization like this. And if it comes to this organization, it still may be composted. There are different, like, it's not a simple thing. And part of that thought process of what are we doing as a nonprofit and where are we going still has yet to be answered. We're a pretty nascent organization. We're about 6 years old. So as a nonprofit, great, yeah, we're marching ahead. The first couple of years, we were able to rescue about 50,000 pounds. Last year, we doubled, sorry, take that out of the plane. Last year, we increased the volume we were able to save by about 570%. And that came because we finally got the ears of some big players. We now pick up from the sports arenas. Who you're seeing Savannah Bananas tonight? All right, so that we'll get that food. We will get that food and doing a better job of figuring out what do the recipient partners need. Not all of my recipient partners can handle getting 70 plus pans of food plus 5 racks of bread. They may not have the audience, the refrigeration, the freezing, the staff needed to portion it. They may not be open that day, you name it. So when I look at how well we're doing, yeah, we're able to filter it better, but there's also the drawback of I've had to put the brakes on. As an organization, we can no longer accept new food donors unless they fit really neatly in with a run that's already 2 days ago. I literally took on a new food donor because our volunteer can pick up here, drive 5 minutes that they kind of have to pass anyway, pick up here and continue on and do the same drop. So we can't keep growing at this speed. We've added a truck and our staff right now is driving that truck. At some point, we may grow beyond 2.5 employees and be able to have regular drivers or volunteers assist us with the driving. The truck was donated. It's nice to have a refrigerated box truck. A van was donated. It's amazing to have the van as well because not everything is at an accessible point for a box truck or needs that much. When I said, yay, it's a plus, I've just told you that. When I say, yay, it's a minus, I know some of our partners are still using styrofoam containers to break that food down into and serve it. I know some of our food runs go out in big SUVs. It's private individuals like you guys and the cars you drive. And speaking frankly, the cars on the road are big SUVs or pickup trucks. They're not fuel efficient. I mean, I've got a Prius. Okay, yay for half fuel efficiency. But, you know, when I look at what damage are we doing? And that's the stuff that we want to look at. And even though we don't have that answer, I'm proud that we're asking the questions. How can we help our recipient partners? How can I put food into their kitchens and line them up so they're using less styrofoam to make it so that they waste it less? How do I link them up with things that they need? Or how do I get it at the source and make it something that is going to skip some of that extra driving, skip some of that extra packaging? So we now have partners, people who know who we are, and we couldn't have gotten to ask the hard questions without having that many of those 3 pieces, the food donors, the volunteers, and the recipient partners. So that's my pride.
That's perfect. All of that makes me just think through so many different things that we've been through as a business. First and foremost, we started out on bicycles. That was our plan, the terrible plan. But it was, you know, an idealistic plan, right? That we could manage this and that we could do this. And we quickly grew to a new scale to where that wasn't realistic, right? 300 pounds on the back of a bike is really heavy. So we moved to trucks. And so that was cool. And then kind of this whole idea of education and the like, and I've got, you know, a handful of notes here to clip through. But in our first year, we were actually driving competition to see who could provide more food waste to us. And we quickly realized that's not where we're going, right? It was a win for us because we were getting more people to sign up. But we don't want more of your waste. We want to be the last person that you think of. And so we're actually in this business, and that's why we've started these new verticals of educating people and getting them out of having to utilize us. Like that's the long-term reality that we have to have. You know, and there's going to be some level of waste. So I think we're always going to be needed in some sense, because to the point of like how we're cooking foods, there's always going to be a byproduct. Like we're not using the onion skin, and animals aren't going to traditionally eat the onion skin, right? But there are products that we're not thinking about, like garlic and garlic skins. Did you know that if a cow eats garlic, it keeps the flies off? Like pretty interesting stuff that we're learning as we go, and now we know we can divert these things to new places. Um, I would say that what I'm proud of, though, in this sense, is the growth for one. That's been wonderful over the years, and these new business ventures, which have been a lot of fun for us to learn so much and to continue to learn, just continues to open my eyes to help me understand what I don't know. I mean, there's just so much out there. But what's been really cool is to see the city and counties begin to take this on. So you all may know that the city, you can actually take your food waste to city dump sites. So like where you would otherwise take your recycling, we have a partnership with them where you can take your food waste. And that's partially to a man here in this room. I won't call him out totally, but Kris Lake, and it has helped to initiate that through being on the board of the advisory for the waste of Mecklenburg County. And now we have Davidson on board, we have Belmont on board, and so the cities are starting to step into this space and draw, or the towns and cities are starting to drive this, which has been really good for us. But again, it's rethinking and retooling and going back to that idea of a bike-centric model in this hub and spoke is kind of how I termed it when we first started. Obviously, there's a play in there. In that we actually need to get comfortable with our waste. We need to get comfortable with the things that we don't want to see. And otherwise, we don't see them and we just move them on, and then they become a real problem, i.e., a landfill. Whereas if we had more pockets of waste in our neighborhoods, we would actually probably waste less. And so then kind of expanding upon that, there's a group out of a community in Antwerp that now actually rents chickens to you. Wild, but you can feed them your food waste. Right? And now it's being put to use because it's actually creating food. And again, there's still going to be some level of waste that's going to have to be composted, but it's continuing to have these outside the box thinking and grow from there.
May I jump in with one more thought? I'll come back to it. Thought, action item to, as you're ordering your food, if you're in a position for work or a family event where you're going to be ordering catered food, talk to that caterer, talk to that restaurant to see what other options are. Some of our food donors are not restaurants. They are businesses. We have a law firm uptown that when they order things, they basically know they've got their formula, but they try and order in half size pans instead of a full size pan. It's not the volume of what's in there. Think legal sheet of paper versus regular old size of paper. Instead of ordering a full pan, because when they have it out in the buffets, if someone dips into it, we can't take it. Someone dips into a half size pan, then there's still some waiting in the hot box. It's in that hopper waiting. Oh, it never got used. It can come to us. So sometimes it's that packaging and find out, I don't want to create more waste. I don't want 6,000 single serving sizes with little plastic containers that are going to go in the trash, but start those conversations. That's an easy action item. As Kris said, he doesn't want to get your food. So you just stopping and thinking about it. If you do it now, you'll be ready for the next time. If you forget and the next time you're like, oh, that was a lot in the trash can. Great. Now you've got a starting point because you know what you weren't able to use, and now you'll have the right questions for that caterer, for that family affair thing that you're making. I'm going to jump in. I think it's just having it in digestible bits. You guys all eat. I mean, if you raise your hand, if you're in this room and you've never eaten before, okay. If you don't know what you don't know. And figuring out, watching the other guy do it. I think our biggest problem is figuring out, okay, so now I know the city takes my compost. That's very different than me stopping and having, as someone who's never composted, does that mean I can throw this chicken bone in? Can I throw this chunk of fuzzy cheese in, or can I take the fuzz off that cheese? What do those expiration dates really mean? Because some of them aren't really expiration. That's all about when it's going to be best buy, and it's for the person selling it. It's for that store. It's not for you consuming it. I guarantee you, all of your ancestors did not have best buy dates stamped on their food. So it's learning how to finding the right steps and taking it bit by bit so you figure out how it works for you, and being that advocate, finding a place that you're comfortable to say, hey, we're having this family event. I don't want to do that, but we can do this instead. You were chuckling. Do you want to take it?
The whole food expiration date thing is just a whole new thing for me. Like as you continue to get through it, you learn more and more. And just to answer your question specifically, I think it's cost. We have no idea how much it really costs us in all of this, and we have some idea, but I think most people do not. And so just think about, well, I guess question, how old is the food that's in the grocery store when you go to grab it? You have any idea? 2 weeks? 2 weeks old. That means that it had to get here, and it had to sit there, and it had to be stored, and it had to be cooled. I mean, like it's like the cost of transportation, the cost of energy, the cost of water, the cost of employment, the cost of people to move it off of the truck, to let it sit there, to let it rot, and then have to move it again. $218 billion a year lost. That's insane, right? And so I think that that's like where, if we understand these costs, we then choose to buy differently, and we understand that when we buy from a grocery store, how much of that stays in your local economy? 20 cents on the dollar. How much if you go to a farmer's market? 80 cents on the dollar. You want to impact your local economy? Buy at a farmer's market. Because those people are going to spend their money right here. It's going to stay here, and it's going to stay in this circular space. I think that cost is something that we just totally forget. And then, again, if your food is fresher, because our farmer, when did he pick his food that he's selling today? Yesterday. Talk about nutrients, talk about health and wealth for our community, all because you bought it at a farmer's market. Super cool. I think 100%. I think we don't, and again, it's like the distance of all of this stuff, right? We've pushed away stuff so we don't have to think about it. We put our waste in a bin, it goes to the curb and it goes away. Never have to think about it again. And on a huge line here, and I apologize to any of you in the room, but I think that every single chicken once in their lifetime, you would eat a whole hell of a lot less. You would respect the food that's in front. Go to, or you go through a fast food chain, you grab a half-pound burger, it means nothing because you didn't see how that went down. And I think it's with all of it, every single bit of it. I think we need to be closer to everything. I think our energy in our neighborhoods, we should see the windmills going, because then we know it's a whole different world.
I think it's just a lot easier because when we typically go grocery shopping, a lot of times we don't look at the expiration date. We're looking for ease, and when I relate that to like the dog food, one of my biggest pet peeves is I keep hearing that it's just easier to feed feed our pets kibble, and they don't realize that it's like, do the research. The research shows that kibble is so overly processed, just to be able to have that shelf life, because of, like you were just saying, it goes through the whole process of being made at the extremely high temperatures, and then the ingredients that they include in that are they're including things to be able to hold it on that shelf for even longer. So you think about what you're feeding your dog. You're basically, they're taking everything that we wouldn't eat. They're putting it in this big. They're mixing it, and I mean, it's everything. It's the beaks, it's the feet, it's everything. The fur, everything is going into this mix. Also, that we can keep it on the shelf a little bit longer. When you're shopping fresh, you know what you're feeding yourself as well as your animals. You know exactly what you're getting. You're not getting the over processing and all the other things that go in it. Those keep you from.
I feel like we're about to get on our soapboxes.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
If I'm using the microphone so you can hear me. If I'm looking at what those dates mean, if you start paying attention, and darn it, I really heard a good presentation on this recently, and shame on me for not bringing it here because I work in this industry now and I'm still like, what does that mean? My takeaway was, yeah, those are labels designed essentially either by government to make sure folks are safe, down with that, that's fine, or vendors to increase the amount of sales and have things pristine. We have gotten very far removed from understanding that things are imperfect. If you have traveled abroad and you have seen, even humans are not perfect. When we go to other countries, it can be quite a shock to see not only are people a little bit different with teeth or physical deformities that haven't, there may not be the access to fix those things, but the fruit, it may be a lopsided apple, but it may taste and actually be better for you, even though it's a lopsided apple. If you have eggs in your fridge, they have gone through a lot of processing just as an egg to get to you. If you're unfamiliar with chicken anatomy, eggs come out the back end, and sometimes they get a little messy when they come out the back end. Different hole, but bear with me. If you're getting eggs and you're getting them right, oh, here's our chicken, let's take that, or the farmer's market. They don't need to be refrigerated right away because there is, for lack of a better term, a small protective layer on them. If you've got eggs in your fridge, whether they're from a farmer or your neighbors that have chickens, or if they're from mainstream, wherever, take a glass of water, put an egg in it. If it sinks, good to eat. If it levitates, hesitate. If it bobs, it's for the bin. Think about the gas building up. You've all probably made hard-boiled eggs. Smells like fart. Think about that. Essentially, there's gas in there as things rot. And if it bobs at the top of the water, skip reading the date on your eggs. Just float your eggs. That's one way you can keep it. If you make something, if you buy something, label it date prepared. I used to mock my grandmother. She had a grease pencil and she'd write on all the containers. All right, guess who now has a Sharpie marker and writes on all the containers? That's stuff that you guys can do in terms of looking at what you've got and reducing the waste to figure out, is it something that I've had open for a while? I don't remember. Oh, here's the date on it.